Hi students, Professor Laney here. We are finishing up Unit 3 with exceptional students, and we call them gifted or talented. So again, Unit 3 really kind of, I put these out of order again just to put kind of like ideas together, like-minded kids or things that you would see grouped together. And so we started with ADHD, EBD, then ASD, and now gifted and talented students. Now, before I get started, um, some of you may have already started rolling your eyes, like gifted. If they're gifted, they should be fine. Why do they need help? Well, it's a very interesting group of students. And sometimes kids who are advanced, like we learn in ASD, some kids who have splinter skills, they have their own unique challenges. Now, these students too have a similar set of challenges, but it's a little different, especially because not every state offers gifted education. So IDEA does not protect these students. So we've been learning up to this point that, FAPE and LRE and equal rights for all students. Well, the gifted kids don't have a consistent set of funding, and we'll get into that in a second. But, um, you know, have you ever been bored in a subject? Maybe it's this one, maybe it's a different class, and your mind starts wandering. Imagine that happening all the time. And, these kids have some talents, and we need to help nurture them. It's the same thing as, growing a plant. You can't just like shove a seed in the dirt and expect it just to do great. Even gifts and talents can kind of wither and die if they're not supported. So, what if these kids are ready, to invent something brand new or, some sort of technology or even the cure for something, and we haven't supported them. So open your mind and, don't just roll your eyes and be like, okay, well, these kids are smart. They should be fine. Why should we be helping them? Remember, supporting all learners, that's the foundation of our work here too. So keep it in mind. And by the way, you can have kids who are gifted in one area and like be super gifted and then have a learning disability or a speech or a cultural linguistic issue. So just know we'll talk about those combinations in a second, but just because they're gifted doesn't mean that their life is easy. They have everything handed to them on a platter, or that doesn't mean they don't struggle in some other way. And we'll even find out that kids can be gifted in athletics, but not in the classroom. So again, let's get into it. Um, you know, you guys here have been around with the advent of the iPad, and that really has opened the doors for a lot of alternative learners. And again, this resurgence in STEM technology or STEAM technology. You guys do know that STEM is science, technology, engineering, and math, and STEAM is science, technology, engineering, art, and math, which I like the STEAM because kids can be gifted in art and they're still gifted. So sometimes they're just put in the regular classroom, and you know what? I'm sure you guys have all seen this where kids just get bored and they start being rambunctious. So it's a challenge. It's like they're not disabled, but they're alternatively abled and they need some support. So it's a really funky situation. So um, I want to put two quick little videos in here for you. Nope. That's right. You are a normal kid with a special talent, right? What do you think about being gifted? This is obviously for kids who are gifted, but at the same time, I also believe that everybody has a gift. And I think it's really important to just to know that if you just because you're not gifted in the classroom doesn't mean you're not gifted in general. So this is going to give you a little bit more of an overview. What are gifted kids? Gifted kids are lucky? I'm not so sure about that. Doesn't mean they all could do math super good. They do learn quickly. They top the class. They're bright. However, oh, that's Australia. We don't like tall poppies. That just means that some flowers, are better when they're more compact. That's cute. Unless they are good at sports. Because everybody appreciates a smart athlete. Just because someone's gifted doesn't mean that they're going to get perfect grades or good grades or even do well. And we'll talk about mindset and motivation. Yeah, this is a good chapter, even though, some of you might think, oh, what are we doing this for? Yeah. There's a lot of pressure on kids nowadays to be perfect, and anxiety disorders are up. It's really hard. Okay, myth number 3. Gifted kids are just clever or smart. And we'll find out that it doesn't take a whole lot of difference in IQ to be considered gifted. We are just the same, except I'm smart. And the smarts will show up in different ways. And we'll talk about the different areas of smarts. It doesn't just mean, again, math smart or... Yeah, that's right. Sometimes these kids have different types of emotional issues because of their giftedness. Gifted kids are socially immature. Maybe sometimes, but not always. I've seen some gifted kids that are like so well beyond their years, even socially. How can I play ball when there is so much else going on in the world? Yeah, we'll talk about existential depression and people who it's like the Matrix. When you take the blue NyQuil, you wish that you took the orange NyQuil and you never figured out the truth. There's that kind of situation. So it's adaptable. Okay, myth number 5. Gifted kids are all the same. Oh, no, 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 no. We've learned that over the course of this course. You meet one kid who's gifted, you've met one kid who's gifted, right? Different needs, different abilities, different programs, different gifts. Oh, interesting. The difference between the gifted could be even greater than the difference between the gifted and the norm. Interesting. Gifted kids will do well at school. Not necessarily. Unfortunately, schools were invented for the norm, not the gifted. Yeah, it's hard. And we're going to talk about the variations, and I'll pull out the bell curve in a second. You guys we'll do a quick little review on that. Would you ever feed grass to an elephant one blade at a time? School can feel a bit like that for gifted kids. Oh, yeah. You know, some gifted kids already know what you're going to teach. They're already advanced enough. Number 7, gifted kids will succeed. Sometimes they end up in hot water, that's for sure. Will they? Just like a gifted child, an amazing cake mixer is not going to create delicious food on its own. But with a good recipe, like support and programs, enrichment, parents, teachers, right? The right ingredients. Absolutely. I tell people you can make mac and cheese from the Dollar Tree, which is not a problem. Don't get me wrong, I've done it. Or you can go get lobster mac and cheese down by the beach. Same thing, different ingredients. We ought to be creating conditions in school that enable students to pursue what is distinctive about themselves. We ought to want them to retain their personal signatures, their particular ways of seeing things. Of course, their ways of seeing things need to be enhanced and enriched, and the task of teaching is in part to transmit the culture while simultaneously cultivating those forms of seeing, thinking, and feeling that make it possible for personal idiosyncrasies to be developed in the process. We will discover both who children are and what their capabilities are. Elliot W. Eisner. I really like this video. I like the visuals. And it is based for an Australian audience, but guess what? That shows you that this is an international issue, right? And we'll talk about what that means when we don't help our students, okay? Again, when we look at all learners, children who are not challenged are cheated, and that's for all learners. That is really, really for all learners. So think about that for a sec. So now you know what we're going to get into here. If we really look at the definition here, there's old definition. It was just really just based on IQ, and the tests were really funky. But now there's more ideas that go into what is giftedness, what is intelligence, what makes a person gifted, and in which areas. Does it have to be all areas? No. Okay. Now, we know that, again, IQ right now is only part of the picture. We can have IQ, but not EQ. EQ is emotional quotient, which is like your emotional learning, right? Emotional intelligence instead of intellectual intelligence. But again, it could include any of these areas here, like this general smarts, specific aptitude in one area, creative thinking, very productive thinking, leadership, art, and psychomotor ability. This just means sports, people who could dance or, do sports and things like that. My nephew, smart, yep. Not so much in the visual performing arts, but fantastic athlete, great kid. He was like one of these kids who did like young sports refereeing and things like that. So smart and really good student. So, but still has, has the mouth and stuff, but, he's pretty good. He's got a great environment. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law are very, very structured, and they expect excellence, and he's provided it because he can. And so they've really been able to nurture that from him. His sister, on the other hand, by the way, is better in here. Not so much in here, but she's smart, but maybe she has more of this like artistic, creative, interpersonal type situation. So it's kind of neat to see how two different kids can, But again, this is the IQ, the bell curve that we talked about. I believe this is chapter 1 or 2. And again, the average IQ is right about here, about 100, right? Now, if you go up one standard deviation, you get about 115. So you go up about 15, 130, right? This right here is about, honestly, like even up to now, this is about the average IQ of the American president. If you add them all up and divide by the number you've added by, yeah, so it doesn't take a genius, right? But here's the approximate gifted education spectrum. Now, to be considered a genius is 140 is low genius. So in here is where you're going to get your kids who are really, really smart, again. And then remember down here, it's like opposite, right? You're going to get kids who are very, you may not even be verbal down here. So, and we'll talk about twice exceptional in a way in a minute. But again, I want you to remember here, this is the kids who are, most of our students are going to be in here, right? Most of our students. Look at this. Most of them. They're going to have a little bit fewer here and then very few here. Okay. Einstein was about 160. So again, he would have been really fun to educate, right? Didn't speak till he was 3. Now, I want you to really think about this right here for a second. We have 3 million students, roughly. But look right here. There's no federal investment to support gifted education. It's not required from the government. The states provide it, right? Look at in Texas, there's zero funding. Okay. Look at that. 360,000 students have a disability and are gifted, and we'll talk about twice gifted in a moment. Right? Look at this. 1 in 4 Hispanic or African American students are gifted. 3 in 4 white or Asian. Nah, I don't know about that number. Wow, that's amazing. And we'll bring this up again when we get a little bit down there. But again, there's no category, right? There's no category as a disability. It's not a disability, right? So it's not funded by the government. It's funded by the states if it's available, and sometimes it's limited, and sometimes the states have put in a requirement. So again, there's different issues that are surrounding this, and so again, we'll get into that. Make sure you know what creativity is. I think we know what that is, and gifted and talented is just the term referring. Steve Jobs, yeah. He's talking about hiring people and how he hires people and what he looks for. But also, I just wanted you guys to keep in mind, he is adopted, right? And he's mixed race. He's like a Middle Eastern race or I'm sorry, heritage of Middle Eastern heritage. And so I really like the fact that he can be compared to for that nature versus nurture situation. I'm not saying there's no gifted people in the Middle East. I'm saying that when you pull a child out and put him in a different culture, you can support their natural abilities or not. And so obviously his natural abilities were supported, which is really, really cool. So again, big fan of that. interesting, that last little piece about they don't want to work for him anymore, or they don't have the energy to work for him anymore. People like that can be very intense. He's also was possibly bipolar, and that was a whole other thing there. But I'm sure you've seen there's some movies out on him as well. But very interesting because again, these kids haven't always been in a great environment, and maybe now that they were as adults, they thrive, which is fantastic. So why do they have to wait to be adults? Okay, so again, for our extremely gifted kids can be identified early, and there's assessment and identification. And we'll talk about what the difference between gifted is and bright is, and even autistic, that Asperger's disorder. So we'll talk about the differences there too, because gifted is different than all those things. So again, it almost is its own spectrum as well too. So there's different ways to identify students. It could be all of these different things: achievement tests, IQ tests, referrals, self-referrals, parent referrals, that kind of situation. And there is a newer model out that talks about getting students classes outside of the traditional curriculum, so in a school enrichment model. So again, some schools do this, some schools don't. It's not mandated, but I can tell you right now, my son's at a Title I school, and they do enrichment after school. We do have to pay for it, but it's fantastic. And they do a few things during the school year, but not so much. Again, they took out art and music, and we pay for art and music, so that would be considered an enrichment now. So that's just the state of the state. Our high achievers like, yeah, I got it, I'm smart. The gifted learners like, yeah, but I see that there's more to expand on. And the creative learners like, well, I could sculpt that, paint that, tag that, whatever, right? I could make an app, whatever. So it's really, there's differences here still. This group is not all the same. This is a first grade assessment. This is part of a first grade assessment. I'll do a couple more so you guys can see. See how it's not just reading, it's visual as well? That one's really easy. That's challenging. It's pretty easy. Do you see how this would be hard for a dyslexic child? Or a child with dyslexia? Right. So, but that doesn't mean that they're not smart in other ways. So it's really interesting to look at this part of this assessment. Yeah. So again, do you know first graders who can do that? Then maybe they're gifted. Okay. Our kids are normal. They just aren't typical. Just remember, you can be typical or atypical on either side of the bell curve, right? And that could be teacher of students who are struggling as well, too. They're normal. They're just not typical. Let's see, characteristics, okay? They have some similarities, okay? But again, there's always differences, but are there similarities? Sure. Again, this is the same thing that we looked at before, those areas. This is a sweet, sweet little girl. She's advanced, but she's so young, okay? Oh, I don't know why it says poem right there, but her IQ is 156. She seems very, very sweet and precocious. Yeah. So, I mean, that's just one example there, but um, so some kids you're going to see that read really early or are really advanced physically, things like that. So um, it really goes back to multiple intelligences. Now, I get to tell you right now, my sister's in the credential program of at Cal State Fullerton right now, and they are not teaching multiple intelligences. They're saying that it's not not as a proven theory. Well, again, anything can be proven or disproven, but I think this is a great way to look at things for now, especially with our early learners, like our early childhood. Now, multiple intelligences just means that some people have a little bit more of a lean toward their natural ability. Okay, so some people are going to be, and I like this chart a little bit because it says, let's say if you have a really easy musical ability, do you know somebody who can like pick up an instrument and just start playing? It was awesome, right? They're music smart, or somebody who's word smart, or intrapersonal is self smart, or people smart, picture smart, logic smart. So instead of telling people like I'm really bad at math, you would say I'm really good at images. I'm picture smart. So it's a way that we can work on our strengths and not just constantly trying to build up a weakness that we have that maybe is just not natural for us to build up. So I do like the multiple intelligences. Let's see, do they add nature? Yeah, nature smart. That was kind of added later, and then there's another one called existential smart. Now they just kind of block these into like interactive, analytic, introspective, and I think that's kind of nice to know. Here's the existential piece right here that it really just means spiritual, really, for people who can kind of talk about like, the nature of life and spirituality and religion and things like that. So I'm glad that they added that in there. And then again, if you are a bodily kinesthetic person, they're really strong in athletics, dancing, acting, crafts, or using tools. They like to move around and they learn best through touching, moving, processing knowledge through sensations. So again, this is a great way to think of your study habits, and maybe the kids that you're going to work with. Again, here's this existentialist. They're looking for the truth. Now, sometimes we'll talk how sometimes that might keep them stuck emotionally a little bit, but the difference between a bright student and a gifted learner, like again, that bright student will know the answer, but the gifted learner is going to look past the answer, right? Let's see, like this, right? So a bright student learns a new material easily. A gifted learner already knows it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, right? So it's, right? These ones are like, hey, I learned that. High fives. This one is very self-critical. Like I didn't do it perfectly. It's hard. Okay. Let's see else what do you have. So again, now let's look at gifted education in our context of our society here. Now, public support has kind of comes and goes, but it's again not included in the IDEA, right? Now, there are programs, there's grants, there's all kinds of different things, but again, we haven't really made it consistent, and so it's coming along. But I want you to look here and see what's required, who has what. Okay, so gifting program is mandated in Iowa, Oklahoma, Mississippi, and Georgia. Mandated, fully funded by the state. Mandated, partially funded by the state. Look at all these. Gifted program is mandated. No is mandated, but there's no funding available. So maybe the private schools or the schools have to raise money for that. Boom, boom, boom. Gifted program is not mandated, but funding is available. So again, that could be by district. And gifted program is not mandated, and there's no funding available. Oh my goodness. In New York, there's no funding available. Michigan, wow. Illinois, that's crazy. Oh my goodness. And again, there's no money from the government for that. Crazy. I did put here this is from the Orange County Department of Education, and there's some local agencies here and things like that, and I wanted you to put in there. But again, these are the expectations for the GATE teachers, gifted and talented education. And again, right here, they take the Common Core standards and they expand them. They don't make them do like busy work or easy work or that kind of stuff. So there's a lot that's available. But again, if you think this is your student, you talk to the teacher. If you think it's your child, yeah, talk to the teacher or even the doctor, and then you guys can maybe come up with some sort of referral to the school or the school district, And I really like this right here. Create the mindset and metacognition to meet challenge. Ah, mindset, we'll talk about in a second, and metacognition is thinking about your thinking. Now, I'm really pleased that my son's first grade teacher talked about metacognition, so I'm able to talk to my son about his thinking. And it's really nice because I'll say, what were you thinking and what was your thought process? And he can self-reflect, which is really, really good. Bright kids go to school and never encounter anything that makes them extend effort. They grow up thinking being smart means they don't have to work very hard. The first time they encounter something difficult, they think they are not smart enough. It's hard. Burst the bubble a little bit. And how common is it? Okay. Again, we have about 3 million students. Okay. And only about 360,000 students, is that about 1%? Again, I'm not going to test you on numbers and statistics, but we have about 3 million students, but it's roughly 3 to 7%. It's mostly male, which is interesting. But there's a lot of variation between subgroups, and we'll talk about the 3 major subgroups. Did I not do this guy? Yeah, I added that one here. Most teachers believe that gifted learners need special help. Look at that. 88% of high school dropouts have passing grades but drop out because they're bored. Or only 6 states mandated. Well, we had 4, but now it looks like they've added. And did you know gifted learners often know half of the year's curriculum before the school begins? Yeah, I'd be crazy bored. Now, can you be disabled and be gifted? Yes, right? They're called twice exceptional. Okay. Now, again, there's a really funky thing that happens here because if you have a gifted student and a disabled student, what came first or what needs more assistance? And so what happens is that they're underidentified because if they're gifted enough to hide or adapt with their disability, or if they're disabled, sometimes they're too disabled to show their giftedness. And then sometimes they're just not identified as gifted or disabled because they just kind of balance each other out. So again, just working with them, accommodating them, providing direct instruction, getting to know them, figuring out what they need to do. Don't make him your classroom assistant. Don't make him the hall monitor. Don't put him in a weird situation. You don't make him the mini teacher. But provide additional opportunities, not more work, just better work. Now, I know this one's hard to see, but we have here ADHD. These all touch the gifted spectrum here. ADHD, OCD, specific learning difficulties, ASD, anxiety, Tourette's, OCD. This one's ODD. This is OCD. I can't really read this one here. ADD, sensory integration disorder, auditory processing, depression. So would be a mood disorder. So again, gifted kids can have all these things or a little bit of everything, right? Twice exceptional students is gifted students with disability. So again, my son hasn't been identified as gifted, but we don't know because his disabilities are so pronounced that sometimes it hides some stuff. But I'm telling you, he can build robots at home, but he can't hold it together to be on the robotics team at school. So it's hard. I like this as a shirt from the Special Olympics. My abilities outweigh my disabilities. That's great. And again, look at this, bright not broken. Gifted kids, ADHD, and autism. Why twice exceptional children are stuck and how to help them. Look at this one. Temple Grandin helped write that, which is super awesome. Yeah, that's a really good book. And then the difference between gifted and Asperger's. Now again, gifted usually means a little bit more well-rounded student, and Asperger's disorder shows splinter skills and less social skills, right? So again, pretty interesting. There's again that fine line. It's its own spectrum. And the 3 subgroups, girls, culturally and linguistically diverse, and poorer students are usually under-identified, okay? So again, there's a few different things that go on there. Girls may just be more quiet or hide it or don't want to be identified as smart. Diverse students sometimes are lost in their own cultural issues, or maybe there's other things going on that the teachers aren't aware of. And poorer students, their schools have fewer resources. The teachers aren't as good, and they have less opportunities, less honors classes. We know what honors classes are. But again, you'll see some of these things right here. Some of these kids might joke around, you swear, talk about fairness, and teachers may misunderstand, and then it, their giftedness is missed, right? Isn't that amazing? So sometimes even a smart aleck kid can be really, really smart, be gifted. I talked about this existential depression. It's like sometimes they just understand too much and they get sad about it. So got to keep your eye on that. And I think this is kind of funny. What my friends think I do, what my mom thinks I do, what society thinks I do, what guys think I do, what I think I do, and what I really do. Being smart doesn't mean you don't have to work at it, right? But everyone is gifted. I don't want to just say that, just girls, right, or just boys, or whatever. But everyone is gifted in their own way, right? They just sometimes aren't able to really tap into it. Okay. And acceleration. These are some options here that we have. Okay. If we have higher advanced classes, we do some acceleration, advanced placement. There's a bunch of different options. Okay. Is there an inexpensive way to meet their needs? Yes and no. It is expensive to hire an extra teacher. And no, it's not expensive to just be a great teacher and be on your game and provide them some additional opportunities. So acceleration just means that they can actually accelerate. I did this thing in high school. Incidentally, I was a gifted student. I was identified in the first grade, and I did this thing in high school where I did some AP classes, but I also did this thing called contract where I actually took two classes at the same time. Um, and that kind of sounds funny, but it was like I took history and Spanish. And so 2 days a week I was in one class and 3 days a week I was in the other. And then I flip-flopped it. And I was able to take two classes in the same amount of time. Um, yeah, that was fun. I mean, it did well. It was all right. It was challenging. I had to work at it. But yeah, it's possible. You just have to kind of work. So I basically had enough credits to graduate after my sophomore year. But I still wanted to do college prep. So it was one of those things where I just kind of stayed around, but and then I had limited classes and I went to school from like 7 to 11 in the morning for my last 2 years of school. So, and then I actually got a full-time job. So yeah, it's a little outside the norm, but that was my story. And if I would have gone back and done it differently, I probably would have just started college earlier. But my original plan was not even to go to college, this whole thing. So just know that no one's on plan A, and even if you are in high school, you can let your friends, your siblings know if they're enrolled in high school, they can also enroll at the community college. Yeah, at the same time. And I think some of the fees are waived. So just know that I have 18-year-olds or under 18-year-olds in my classes, and sometimes they're gifted, and that's part of their acceleration. AP classes or IB courses, curriculum compacting. It just means going deeper into the curriculum, and then you can skip a grade as well. Also, there's service delivery options. Look at this one. Like, again, you can put kids together. You can have them in a special class. Look at this one. So again, most of the gifted kids are in the regular classroom. They're just getting better work, and then as they need to be separated, this is going to be the AP IB honors in here, right? Right? And then it's going to get all right here. So interesting. Cool, right? So again, magnet schools are going to be in like the top 2.5%. Pretty interesting, right? We are each gifted in a unique and important way. It is our privilege and our own adventure to discover our own special light. I like that. I am a gifted student. Teach me, engage me, challenge me, believe in me. That's awesome. And differentiation. Again, what do we mean by making it different? Okay. Enrich, yes, but also look at the depth of the learning here. There's different types of enrichment and there's different types of depth here. And again, really, we're looking for a well-rounded student. That's what a gifted kid and really a leader is going to be well-rounded in their school, family, and community and all these different areas here in self. Okay. I really like that one. And again, differentiated curriculum. Again, remember we differentiate for different levels, even a different like a lower level, but we can also differentiate for a higher level as well. Now, when teachers go to plan their lessons, they need to really think about their depth, right? So sometimes I teach art classes, and so what I do is I have a basic piece of art that I'm teaching, but then I also have like this area over here for just in case you nailed this technique, you can go, you can squirrel out over here. I give you some other advanced techniques, but there's some students who are just really struggling, and I got to kind of slow it down, pace it down, or even water it down, make it a little bit more level appropriate. And again, this is not in public school, this is private art classes, but again, so there's this thing when a teacher's creating a lesson, they need to really look at all the differences here. Okay. And this is, I want you guys to think about this too here, because this also applies to you guys. Now, here in college, remembering and understanding should be pretty basic, but applying those things that you've learned is really, really important. In fact, when you keep going further in your education, you should be able to analyze, evaluate, and then create your own ideas or create your own project and things like that. So just know that this is, when we design lessons, we might, this is the basis right here, remembering and understanding. But the application, this is where you're going to get a better teacher. This is where you have like the opportunities for remembering and making an impact. Okay. And then here, this is for people, this is a little bit more advanced here as well. Now this is called a project-based learning, which is really cool because instead of saying, okay, this is a number and this is a number, let's build a tiny house and figure out the area, perimeter, and the geometry of it. So again, you're going to have different schools that are called project-based schools and things like that, and sometimes the projects aren't even like this, they're community-based projects too, so that's kind of cool. So just be aware, do your due diligence if you're gifted, or if you have a gifted child or a family member, do your research. This is really cute. It's a cute little video that a student made in high school to illustrate a chemistry concept, and it's a little funky, but if you don't really listen to the content or the words, just to look at how he made a movie, it's really awesome. Construction paper and talking about what it's like to get a girlfriend with harmonies. Sounds like he did both of the harmonies too, which is amazing. That's a lot of work. That's called, you know, as a teacher, here's a worksheet, learn this, and this, and the student's like, yeah, yo, I got this, right? I'm going to present it in a really like amazing way. So again, that's going to be an example of an advanced kid there. Now, enrichment can happen during the school time, right? Like again, we have art masters, and we just did walk through California yesterday and things like that. Could also happen after school. And Governor School is a summer residential program. It's really like Summer Bridge, things like that, Avid, all those kinds of things. So again, just see what's available. But again, as teachers, we need to really make sure that we are providing those opportunities and really making a better, a deeper understanding of the same topics. Okay, and there's a video in here that'll introduce you to some learners here. Now, in regards to technology, of course, online learning helps, right? And you guys are taking an online class, which is really awesome. Some of you may be gifted learners because you don't need that classroom experience. You may have self-discipline, or you're not. But again, online courses are fantastic. I actually am looking to a doctoral program that's online. So it looks like, technology is really helping. But again, there's a lot of different things that you can do with technology. I have a friend of mine who just takes classes, and you can take classes on the internet, obviously. In Second Life, you can go to whatever and enroll in classes. Um, but I hear they added JPL Laboratory. JPL has a family day once a year, which is really cool. And you have to buy a ticket, but it's like $10 or something like that. But it's the Jet Propulsion Laboratory in Pasadena, and I have a friend of mine whose daughter went to like their summer camps and stuff. And it's so cool. I really, really like what they're doing. And they're bringing it's like a museum, but not, it's like a laboratory. So it's really, really cool to see what's going on there. And I just looked it up in the event's over, but they do tours. If you get 20 people to go, they do a free tour. They do them all the time, and I think you can just kind of go, but um, it's a really cool program. So again, there's different kinds of things. Even Google Earth, you can do walkthroughs of like museums, not just the Louvre. You can go anywhere. So there's a lot of different things that, again, if that's you or you want to work with those students, you can. So there's a bunch of different qualities here and things to keep in mind. But again, being smart is not bad. So I think there's been a lot of that. And this one's kind of cute. Plays a neurobiologist on TV, actually one in real life. Right. So if you don't watch that show, it's called The Big Bang Theory. And she was also on TV a long time ago. Her name was Blossom. That was a TV show. And her name is Miam Bialik. And yeah, so she literally got her master's or doctorate in neurobiology, and then she went back to acting and plays a neurobiologist. Kind of nerdy, kind of fun though. But it's good that girls can be smart, and if you have a goal, go for it. But as teachers, we need to really support them. So let's think here. Current programming. Yeah. Do we have options? I remember my second grade teacher. She introduced me to some certain art techniques. And so when I was done with my stuff, I could stay busy, right? But it wasn't enrichment, but I actually still use some of those techniques she showed me. And that was what, I was 6 or 7? Yeah. So she saw that I had that creative ability, and trust me, I've done some pretty interesting things. I'm actually an award-winning artist. So it was kind of cool that she saw that in me, and it really is really helped shape my entire life. But again, it's only a part of me, but I know that I didn't realize that I had that ability. So it's nice when you have a teacher who really pays attention. Good. So that enrichment is really important. Again, I mean, some of our schools might have chess now. My school has it after school, but there are some issues around that too. So I want you to read and listen to these kids who have some great tips. Yeah, it sounds off a little. So we're getting it so far. I'm not sure if I'm going to finish all the way, but the sound's off a little bit. But a couple of things to think about here. Number one, these are typically developed children, right? I don't hear any speech. They look like they have a good command of the English language. Doesn't mean that English language is their first language, because I don't think that's true for all three of these. They have good eye contact. It's interesting because she's not wearing anything outside, anything that would be considered fashionable, and the guys are just wearing regular stuff. So it's kind of interesting to see like a girl who might be gifted might lose that social piece of like whatever fashion and makeup and all this stuff, which is not a big deal because I really don't do that either. But it's interesting because those two guys they might be able to fit into like a regular crowd, and she might maybe ostracized for that. So again, there's a gap there, right? And then we also saw the statistics there. There's 2 boys to 1 girl. Well, maybe that's true, but that doesn't mean that it's true everywhere. And you can already they're being very respectful because it sounds like their teacher is recording it, but at the same time, you can tell that they are a little snarky, right? And that's good or bad. It just is, right? And you're going to get a higher level of vocabulary, linguistic ability, expression, subtlety in language, sarcasm, that the fact that they would like to be treated as a peer, which is hilarious, right? Because I think that's great, and it's a great way to talk to them. Don't talk down to them, but a student and a teacher are not peers. And I think that's indicative, or that's an idea that the students have, that they want to be, I call it big for your britches. Like, yeah, I want to be super grown. But again, it might come off to me, it's coming off a little bit disrespectful, but I have to kind of couch that and maybe look at my biases there, right? So very cool. I'm glad that I could find that one that had like just the actual students in there. But they don't need more work. They need more meaningful work. And Mr. Raff, I don't know where this is from. Maybe Peppa Pig. I don't know. But more meaningful work, right? It's not just like, what's the perimeter of this garden? It's like, well, okay, how can we get a grant to actually build a garden, right? So let's think about that. Do's and don'ts. Use phrases like "you've shown you don't need more practice," or instead of, don't say you've qualified or you're eligible, right? It looks like, and we'll talk about mindset. Like when you're teaching a gifted student, you don't want to put them down, and you don't want to like overinflate them. You want to challenge them again. Um, Offer training for all your teachers. Okay. Do not confuse high achievers with high ability students, right? And the difference is subtle there, because high achievers and high ability students, the high ability students with a great environment can become high achievers, but a high achiever with a terrible environment may become a poor ability student. So there's a fine line there. Assume that by making gifted students your tutors, you're providing a learning extension. Sometimes they'll be like, oh, okay, well, Lisa, go teach those other kids how to do it. They're not the teacher. That's not their job, right? They're a student, okay? Don't give too many directions to students about how they should complete a task. Say, hey, here's the end result I'm grading. How you get there is your choice. Cool, right? Like a rubric. Now, tracking is where they put kids in a track. It's not tracking them, following them, or putting a serial number on it. It's just putting them in a track, like a group, like a cohort. And sometimes it works well, sometimes it doesn't, because again, that's lumping them all together. That doesn't mean that they have the same um, interests or abilities. And grouping, same thing. It's grouping, putting them with like abilities, but maybe not following years and years like a cohort, but just saying, oh, all those students who are great at math, we group them together. All the students who are great at linguistic ability, but So again, it depends. It depends on what works, but again, you need to be sensitive and appropriate. Now, underachievement happens when there's a discrepancy, right? If you have a gifted kid who's getting even a B or maybe C's, underachievement, right? For a typical learner, a C is great. It's average. That's all we need. Excuse me. So again, there's some issues to resolve there. It's hard. Just like teachers don't get a lot of support for special ed stuff, they're not getting the support for gifted stuff too. So it kind of takes upon the teacher to provide that, and it makes a difference. Again, supportive environment can really excel a student. yeah, this is a little bit of a quicker chapter, but remember we have a summary here. We talked about the description of it. There's different types of assessments. How do we identify them? Funding is different everywhere. There's again, we can look into the futures, like what do we need to provide? The context of our society is, we've kind of just figured out that they can take care of themselves, but there's an underrepresentation. There's 3 separate categories there. What are the options here, right? So again, we've got a lot of different things going on. So for the discussion board, I put 2 different ones in, and these are both videos to watch. You can pick whichever one you like better. One is called How to Help Every Child Fulfill Their Potential, and this is a whiteboard. I think they're about the same length, so don't feel like one is better than the other. This one is about mindset. Do you have an open mindset or closed mindset? And how do you help children have that growth mindset? They do talk about that in my son's school, which is, I think, is great because IQ is not the whole thing. You could have an average IQ but have a growth mindset and be able to surpass a student who is gifted who has no support, right? So I put that in there. And then the next one is, let's raise our kids to be entrepreneurs. And so again, this might, which either one, whatever piques your interest, you're welcome to do, and then answer those 2 questions. The 2 questions here or the 2 questions here. But I did put a couple of things here after growth mindset. I did put 2 things here. Okay. Stop telling children that you're so smart, because that's going to help them stop trying. Trust me. There are a bunch of ways that you can say you are so smart, because smart is not everything. I want to see effort. I want to see kindness. I want to see pushing and challenging themselves. Not me, them, right? Yeah, it's so nice when you value other people's opinions. You did a great job helping. It was really brave of you. You took a risk. That's another word that they're talking about. What a great friend you are. I really appreciate that you started a conversation with me. You don't have to say, oh, you're so smart. It's almost as bad as you're so pretty. Again, what does beauty get us? But a modeling contract, maybe? An eating disorder? I don't know, right? So again, we have to look at the value that people provide, right? These are the questions that I've said to Peyton, and during the day, like, what are some things that you wish you could have done better? I mean, not that I'm putting the pressure on it. It's like he didn't like the word failure, because where did you fail today is okay. Some people just go straight for that, because in every failure there's an opportunity. What are you going to try instead? I say, how can we learn from that? What are you going to do differently tomorrow to make it a better day? Okay. What can you do to solve that problem? Or I say, how can you troubleshoot that? Because he does that when he's building a robot. How can you troubleshoot that? Very cool, right? So that I just put that in there for everybody. But again, this guy, really cool. I almost put him in the ADHD chapter because he's awesome. Because he is. It's really cool. So again, make sure you post. And then for the journal assignment, you're going to watch Adora Svitak. She's a very precocious advanced learner, and she has actually more than one TED Talk on here, but this is definitely that great young precocious awkward phase, and now she's like this really beautiful young woman, and she's even talking about sex stuff on TED. It's hilarious. But again, she's talks about what adults can learn from kids, and she talks really fast, so just be aware, and it's great. Let's see what we got here. Oh, and then, okay, there we go. And then websites. I did put some of the websites here. The recommended videos, I think I put most of those in there. And then the resources, these are the same websites for agencies, professional journals if you ever are interested or need to do research. Okay, we have a quiz. This week we have exam 3. I'm going to try to post those by tomorrow so you have them nice and early. And after this, we only have one more unit, which is 3 chapters. I'm so excited. So 3 more chapters and we're done with the course. And so really, really excited. So again, we just finished up unit 3. Look for the quiz posted, the test posted, and get those done by Sunday, 8 p.m. All right, students, keep up the great work. And I will see you in unit 4. And that will be our last unit for the rest of the semester. Take care, and I will see you in the virtual world.